All right. Well, welcome everyone. I am delighted to be here on this Tuesday evening slash afternoon slash wherever you happen to be in the world and are watching this very exciting live chat with Raj Parr and Evening Land Wines. Raj, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. You don't do this very often, I'm told, that you agreed to sit down and chat and drink some wines with me, which I think is probably the wine part of it is probably a thing that you enjoy doing, I assume, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. I drink wine every day, but I don't do this every day.
Good. All right. Well, I guess my first question, because you're a man of many talents and a man of many vocations at many points in your life, my first question is when you do get out and about, maybe to a place that where people don't know who you are, the five people left in the world, how are you introducing yourself these days? Because you're chef turned sommelier turned wine director turned winemaker now. So which one is like most accurate for you in your life?
Oh, right now I'm more of an animal herder and farmer because I have a little kind of some vineyards and farm here with animals. So yeah, if I see someone, I'm just like I'm a wine grower. So that's pretty much what I think of myself as nowadays.
So you're full-time wine grower and your main hub is in California though, right?
Yeah, yeah. So me and Sashi Mormon, my partner, we kind of divide up a lot of the work. He's been doing a lot of heavy lifting in Oregon since the pandemic, and I've been staying put here in California in the last year or so.
It's not a bad place to be. I feel like, I mean, I've never been to Oregon, but I know California and I feel like California is like the better side of that bargain.
Oh, for sure. Well, yeah, it's different. Oregon is greener. The hills are different. It's not as coastal, at least the vineyards, as there are here. So it's different. It's shorter season. It's warmer in the summers. It snows in the winter. So yeah, quite different than here.
You get the seasons, which is nice. As an East Coast girl, I've been actually holding up on the East Coast for a little while now. So I got my first winter, like first real winter in
Yeah.
5 years while I was back here this year. And it was kind of crazy to like not walk out my door and like, just assume that the weather was gonna be beautiful because in California, like 75% of the year you walk out and you're like, I'm gonna be great no matter what I wear, as long as it's decent. So well, we're talking about Oregon wines today. I figured with your recommendation, we'll start with the Pet Nat, which is from Evening Land, and that is the producer that we're talking about, which is your wine. I have a little experience with this wine. I don't have a lot of experience. I did mention on Instagram yesterday that this is actually a wine that we secretly had on the list at press slash not on the list. It was like one of those, as a sommelier appreciate, like one of those great little hand sells that we just kept in the back for winemakers and somms and like Pinot curious people. So we always had them, but I didn't know any of the other wines in the Evening Land portfolio. So I'm really excited to try this Pet Nat. Maybe first I can just start off by saying, for those of you who might be interested in getting all three of these wines, which are part of the Wine Club shipment for spring of 2021, this is a wine that's going to be in there. And if you're curious about what's happening with this crown cap, well, it really is just sort of like a beer. I use the other side of my wine key, instead of like pulling it out, just keep it on like I would open a beer and just crack it. I assume is
Yeah,
that the intended?
that's the right
Okay.
way. Yeah, don't open it like that if it just got shipped to you. Don't open it like that if it's warm, because you
Yeah.
might have a little overflow, but nothing really. Yeah, this wine is Pinot Noir from Seven Springs. It's the first time we made Pet Nat or Pinot Noir. We made Pet Nat Chenin Blanc.
This
Uh,
is the first time? This
the
is
first
the
time.
the okay, cool.
Yeah, this is for the wine club, and this was specifically made for the wine club. And two of the three wines here are specifically made for the wine club, and yeah, 6 or 12 bottle ship. Yeah, twice a year, and yeah, this is Pinot Noir from Seven Springs. No additives, nothing. It's just ferments in the bottle. We do a little disgorgement and put a crown cap back, and yeah, fresh and easy and delicious.
It is delicious. It's a little savory. I think, that frothiness, you look at it, it's gonna be like a milkshake, right? Like a strawberry milkshake. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, there's like a little something funky on here. It's like strawberries that have been um, maybe just like left with a little mushroom. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, oh, for sure.
I always love Pet Nat. I think these are super fun, fruity, but they always have something, a little bit there's like a secret in these wines. I always feel like you drink them and you're like, oh, like this is fun and fruity and this is easy, but there's also something very serious about these wines that I feel like I've always appreciated. So
Mhm.
why Pet Nat, I wonder?
I love pet nat. I like sparkling, and we can't always drink champagne every day, so or sparkling
We'd just
water.
be broke.
Yeah, yeah. So just a little kind of just a pétillant made from Pinot Noir with no yeast added, no sugar added. This is just, you know, ferments on its own, and in the bottle, one fermentation, and that's it.
Kind of a risky process though, right? As a
Uh,
winemaker.
yeah, you have to just watch it. We do this with Michael Cruz. That's why the label says
Okay.
Petaluma, California.
Oh, I
Mm.
didn't even know. I saw that and I was like, it didn't even occur to me that that's not the place where they
Yeah,
landed.
so he has the equipment.
Okay, okay.
He has all the stuff there. So he's a dear friend for many years, and we do all our sparkling and everything. Pet Nat, everything with him in Petaluma.
Yeah, so significantly less variables when Michael Cruz is involved. And for those who
Mhm.
don't know Michael Cruz, probably most famous these days for Ultramarine, but as a compendium of many different wines that are very delicious.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I did not know that, and this is absolutely delicious. You're a sommelier and a guy that loves food, so tell me what you would eat with this.
Yeah, this is more charcuterie, something sit outside, picnic.
Hold on. I'm gonna back up and make you like define charcuterie because I know that you can. So tell me
Yeah,
specifically what kind of charcuterie.
yeah, some prosciutto or some duck rillette,
Okay.
or also maybe some tin fish, something which is fresh and easy. You can just put in a picnic basket and have a ice bucket handy, hopefully to keep it cold, or yeah, get a Yeti bag or something. But
All
yeah,
right.
just
That
something.
sounds that sounds like a Jerusha Frost meal. And shout out to our mutual friend Jerusha, who I just feel like would be very all over that entire situation. Like I can
Yeah,
see
yeah,
her waltzing through the hills of wherever she is with a pet nat and like a basket full of charcuterie and like other assortments. This is great. I mean, this is like exactly what we want for, I mean, any time of year, but specifically for me, spring and summer. And I think about, that outdoor. I miss California. I'll be back there in 2 weeks, but I think about sitting outside with Jerusha when she's in town and having like our duck rillettes and our pâtés and like all that delicious stuff. And it does like have so much life and so much freshness, but there is a lot of texture here. There's a lot of strawberry, there's a lot of fruit, there's a lot of something funky. So I like how it can sort of maneuver back and forth with many different things in a way that champagne actually I find sometimes can't.
yeah, yeah. No, again, the idea is to keep it with fruit. Of course, it's a natural ferment, so it has some of the umami, some of the kind of mushroom and
Mm.
smokiness, and some. Yeah, that's just the part of the natural ferment, which happens with natural yeast. Yeah.
So I mean, I guess when you are picking Pinot for this, are there certain qualities of the Pinot Noir grape that you're looking for that would lend itself well to a pet nat versus a still Pinot?
Yeah, I was surprised that the pick dates are not that far out. Maybe like we picked this maybe like a week before. This is from vines we planted in 2008.
Hmm.
We also make sparkling wine, a Blanc de Noir, Blanc de Blanc, which you pick a different part of the vineyard, which is also like picked, not that far from the red wine. It's just picked maybe like 2 weeks before. This is picked a week before. So we need acidity and a place where you can have nice fresh fruit
Hmm.
character. But acidity is key. You want the wine to not
Sure.
be, yeah.
Well, I mean, acidity is everything, especially when it comes to food, but keeping your palate fresh. I want to jump to the Chardonnay, even though I don't really want to move away from the pet nat because I could sit here and drink this all day and it would be very dangerous. And this would be a very different conversation if I let that happen. So we're gonna set it aside. I'm gonna move over to the Chardonnay. I actually opened the La Source last night, which is not part of the wine club. You guys happened to ship it to me, and didn't know if I was gonna get the pet nat or not, so I didn't want to waste the opportunity to talk about it. So if anyone is curious about La Source Chardonnay, you can find that video that I did last night. This is not the La Source though, and this is coming from where? This is a different sort of label. This is a pretty sort of floral. This is wine club specific, right?
This is Wine Club specific also. It's a small lot. As I guess we had a very difficult 2020 harvest. There was a lot of fires and a lot of the wines were affected by smoke. So we picked this, a little bit early and bottled it early. This is from our top Chardonnay block, the Saumon block, and
Oh wow.
this was picked early and made and bottled early to keep its fruit. So it's just I think it's maybe like 100 cases or so, and yeah,
Whoa.
just to kind of again something fresh and vibrant and crunchy and not serious, but bottled early to show its fruit and show its character.
That's a crazy nose. I don't know if it's me or this bottle or whatever, but like I'm getting tons of anisette on this wine.
Yeah. This little reductive
That's
character,
not,
salty,
yeah.
saltines, and also on the palate it's quite salty and fresh, good acidity, good texture.
All right, so talk to me about reduction because I feel like, and we talked a little bit about this on the Instagram live last night because somebody brought it up. I feel like reduction in Oregon, is it what's happening there? Why is there so many reductive Chardonnays in Oregon? Is that a style? Is that a choice? Is that something that has just become sort of standard? What's going on?
So I think for us, I only answer for us because in the Yosemite Hills and Seven Springs, that's all the experience I have there with volcanic soil, low nutrient soil. The juice has low nutrient. It ferments much longer naturally. We don't add any
Mm,
sulfur in the grapes or in the juice. It just ferments very slowly and it gets slightly waxy. And the slow fermentation, the results in some sulfites being produced in the fermentation, and
mm-hmm,
that is what stays in the wine and gives the wine that kind of lanolin or a little bit of kind of white truffle or a little bit of kind of herbal curry leaf kind of a flavor, and that's what reduction is. It's we don't have, this wine has a very little hint of sulfur at bottling. Other than that, it has
mm-hmm.
got nothing else added in it.
So that herbal curry leaf thing that you're talking about, that's reduction.
Yeah. And that
Okay.
happens, that happens in Riesling, it happens in Chardonnay, it happens in anything which is not aerated a lot and kept topped up.
Uh-huh.
Because reduction is the opposite of oxidation. So anything kept in a closed vessel and tightly sealed and not and just kept like that and topped is what reduction can lead to. Yeah.
Hmm.
Some people
Interesting.
hate it.
Well, that's true, and I really like it. And it was interesting because last night I was saying I really like reduction. I feel like sometimes in the way that I felt about oak, sort of early on in my wine career, so to speak. I loved big oaky Chardonnays, and of course my palate sort of waned and changed and evolved, and I didn't love it so much. Sometimes I like it if it's in balance, but reduction is sort of the same thing. Like, for a long time I was like, oh, like the more the reduction, the better. If I could have every Eve Columbary on the planet and just like dive deep into that, I was great. But I feel like as of late in the last like 6 months, my palate sort of shifted to enjoy a little bit more balance. Although I, after smelling and tasting this, I feel like this is a whole new chapter in reduction. I did not know that this herbal curry leaf thing was part of reduction. This is new for me. So kind of wild. I mean, Chardonnay people or non-Chardonnay people, I think would be shocked to smell a wine like this. And I don't know. I don't. you're an amazing blind taster. I don't know that I would get there, just by smelling this. I don't know that I would get to Chardonnay right away. But it's gorgeous and it's lifted and it's bright, but there's something so herbaceous and savory about this wine, that I just, I keep like, it's just kind of like pulling me in. And then the palate just, it's so textured. You talk about picking early, but yet it has so much depth and breadth. And I find that sometimes with Chardonnays that are picked early, or any wine that's picked early, sort of like lack that center, right? Like it sort of feels like Scott Brenner used to talk about it as a donut wine. Like it just feels
Yeah.
like the whole drops out of the center. But that doesn't have that. So how do you manage that in terms of winemaking? Is it a picking decision where you're like, well, we're picking early, but we still need to pick for, completeness, or is that something that's happening in the winemaking process?
I don't think you can control. Just it's like you have natural yeast and they kind of feed off whatever they feed off. We don't
Yeah.
look to control anything because we don't add anything and take anything away. So it's funny enough that if you taste wines from Seven Springs between 14 and 20, we only got reduction in 14, 16, 18, and 20. And there's none in 15, 17, 19. Don't ask me why. 19. Because we don't control it. It just happens on its own. We make a lot of Chardonnay and Sandy also, and it happens to
Yeah.
some vineyards, some it doesn't. It just depends. I don't know what it depends on either. I wish I could
Yeah.
pinpoint, but yeah, it's just something
You
happens.
don't have all the answers, Raj? Is that what you're telling me?
I definitely don't.
Winemaking is a crazy process, huh? Um, you are someone that's probably more well versed in the ways of not only tasting Burgundy, California, and Oregon, but also, now making it. From your perspective, where do you think the differences lie? Where, starting with Oregon, what's setting Oregon apart from California, from Burgundy?
Oregon and California are kind of opposites. Oregon and Burgundy are kind of more alike, but still very different. Uh,
Hmm.
I mean, the soils are completely opposite in like where we are right now in the Yosemite Hills and Seven Springs. It's all volcanic soils. And where we are on the California coast in Lompoc, San Rita Hills, it's more siliceous, so more silica and silex and that. And Burgundy has limestone. So, but the weather is the most important different because we are in a maritime climate in
Hmm.
the San Rita Hills, and we are in continental climate in Oregon. So much shorter season in Oregon, warmer summers in Oregon, and much windier and much cooler in the growing season in San Rita Hills versus
Mm.
yeah, because everyone assumes that California is warmer, and yeah, I mean, maybe parts of California are warmer, but when you're on the coast in San Rita Hills, it's definitely maybe it's sunnier for sure, but it's definitely cooler in the growing season compared to Oregon. So, but Oregon gets a little more better texture in the wine also. So this Chardonnay has great creamy texture. It's 100%
Hmm.
mallow. We don't change anything, and that texture comes from the thicker skins and really high phenolics in the grapes.
Mm. It does have that great sort of like Chablis sour cream thing going on, but with just a little like tinge more, ripeness in a good way.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Hmm. So which is more challenging as a winemaker, California or Oregon?
Uh,
Pick the child you hate more.
hard. I would say probably they both are. Chardonnay has always a lot of mildew pressure. I don't know. They both have different challenges. Uh,
Do you enjoy one more than the other?
uh, it's maybe it's easier to make it in California than it is Oregon.
Mm.
I think maybe.
Well, I've had the Sandy wines. They're delicious. That was probably my first when I was in New York and I was buying wine for a small restaurant called Rotisserie Georgette. I bought the Sandy wines, Sandy Chardonnay from David. What was his last name? David from Skarnick Wines. You probably remember him.
Newland.
David Newland with the
Newland, yeah.
Mary Poppins bag. I bought all of those wines and they were astounding. It was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, domestic Chardonnay can taste like this. And I feel like I'm having the same revelation with Oregon Chardonnay. I feel like that love affair has just sort of reignited. And in the last couple of years, I've been, illuminated with all of the different wines that are coming from Oregon, like Walter Scott, Lingua Franca, and certain Evening Land. This is the first time, aside from last night, that I'm tasting the Evening Land Chardonnays, and they're astounding. I mean, they are everything that you want out of a Chardonnay. And it's interesting because I think people call Chardonnay the winemaker's grape, but I don't know. It sounds like, is it? Do you think it's the winemaker's grape, or do you think this is a grape that should maybe be left alone a little bit more?
Oof, it can be molded in many ways for sure. There is a lot of ways to mold it. I think it needs to grow in the right place and has to be in the right soil,
Hmm.
and then you can make it anyway. It is like it's right. It could be a winemaker. You can make it into a steely mineral, laser beam, or you can make it into a big, rich, coconut pineapple pie. So depends on what the wine grower, winemaker wants to make of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's either of those things. I think to me it's a pure expression of the grape, but it's not a you say laser beam and my mind jumps to like, zippy, empty, kind of a clean wash away wine. And this isn't wash away. This is, leaves a nice lingering finish. It's round, it's soft, it's lush, but it does have that like, that spike, that acidity, that salt water. Put your chef hat on and tell me, or I guess your sommelier hat on, tell me what you're cooking with this wine.
Oh, this is definitely something like, I guess in Santa Barbara, it's spot prawn season. So I'll probably,
Mm,
take a spot prawn, cut it in half, and just grill it with some butter. I guess if you're on the East Coast and it's lobster season, then lobster and butter, or, crab. Uh,
yeah.
yeah, something,
How do
some.
you eat the spot prawns? I always feel like I had it at Charter Oak in St. Helena, like, I don't know, maybe a year ago, right before the pandemic. And I feel like the whole damn thing just like fell apart. Am I doing it wrong? What part do you eat of the spot prawn? Everything? This is
Well,
like a
yeah,
very West Coast thing.
yeah. Usually the heads, I make a stock out of it. And I take
Uh-huh.
it depends how fatted I take the body. It's really good. You can have sashimi. You can have a quick saute, grill. If you take it out of the shell, it needs to cook only for like 5 seconds, and it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just take it out of the water and eat it too, I think, right?
Oh
It's
yeah, for sure. It's,
probably
it's
my
great.
preference.
It's great to have it just as a crudo, or yeah.
Well, I want to back up a little bit and talk about Evening Land and how this project sort of started for you and Sashi. So, Evening Land in Oregon, take me back to how it started. Why the interest in there in the first place?
Yeah. So we met our partners. I think originally Evening Land was a bigger company. I had vineyards in Sonoma and winery in
Right.
Burgundy and everything else. And so me and Sashi took over the vineyards, which were originally Evening Land in Lompoc, which we helped plant. And then once we took that over in 2013, we had made the 11 and 12 Domaine de la Côte wines, and then in 2014, so then same investors also owned Seven Springs as a part of the Evening Land, and that was also, so they asked us if you want to take it over. So that's how me and Sashi took over in 2014
You
from the.
you say that so casually, like, "Hey, do you guys want this?" Like, "All right, yeah, I guess we'll do it."
Well, it was, it was a vineyard we loved, and we've had many old vintages from other producers in the past,
Yeah.
and it was, and we knew at the time I lived in Santa Barbara and Sashi lived in Lompoc, so there was a direct flight from Santa Barbara to Portland, so we can literally be from Santa Barbara to the vineyard in under 4 hours, which
Mm,
is quite good. So we get there, we get there. I mean, I guess all pre-pandemic, we used to get there, regularly, every few weeks to a month. And since the pandemic, I've driven there and driven back. I haven't flown there yet. Next month,
You
first
drew
flight.
from you drew from Santa Barbara?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
That's a hell of a drive.
Sashi has been there for the whole harvest, and now I'm not
Wow.
sure I think he started flying again. Yeah, we've had crazy schedules in the last year, just back and forth.
Yeah. So Evening Land and the Seven Springs Vineyard. I mean, I remember Evening Land pre you guys. I remember buying those wines. They were great. I don't, I don't have a distinct memory of them, but I don't remember them tasting like what we have now. How long had the Seven Springs Vineyard been producing grapes? How old is that vineyard?
So planted in the mid 80s, and they've been amazing old bottles produced from there, from Adelsheim and Saint
Hmm.
Innocent, and other people bought grapes and blended it. So it was a part of, definitely part of the Oregon wine history. And then when Evening Land acquired the vineyard in 2007, that was the first vintage, and I was consulting with Evening Land at the time in '07, '08, and I myself, my little bottling Parr wines in '07 and '08, I made a bottling from Seven Springs actually. So, I've had a connection with them. Sashi was their winemaker for California, the California
Mm.
wines. So there's been a connection with the vineyard from the beginning. And then when we had a chance to, acquire it and kind of create the program and make the wines, and it was pretty special because the history of Seven Springs is great. There's been many great
Yeah.
producers, great wines made from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think about, Napa now and thinking about some of the like historic vineyards, and obviously, Napa is a region that has arrived, and it is a pricey region, and the prices reflect that. But I think about, the historic vineyards of Napa Valley, the ones that went into those iconic bottlings of the 60s and 70s and, even prior to that. And I have to imagine, being in Oregon and having Oregon be this region that is to some degree still undiscovered, getting the opportunity to work with a legacy vineyard like Seven Springs must have been like dream come true moment. Like, was there even a moment where you were like, I don't know if we can do this, or was it just like we'll build it, we'll figure it out, like just like build the parachute, jump out the plane, build the parachute on the way down.
Yeah, no, it was everything was in the beginning. It was off the cuff, trying to see what we have, and also part of the vineyard had to be replanted, had phylloxera, so
Mm.
it's a big jigsaw puzzle trying to figure all the parts out, and trying to make the best of what we have. I think now we kind of have a game plan, and we had a game plan, and then we had 2020, we had the fires. So, there's always a little hurdle which we have to kind of go past, and yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, I can't even imagine getting access to a historical vineyard like that, and just thinking of, like I said, thinking about the ones in Napa that exist. Like that's the only comparison that I can make. So you mentioned there's phylloxera, so there has been a replant, and then what have you done in the vineyard to, sort of modernize or, improve what was already there?
Nothing much. Just changed. So a lot of the vineyard is still just uprooted and is waiting to be replanted, because we have to give it 3 years for it to sit fallow before we put a rootstock in there. So we are doing it slowly. It was 80 some acres, and now I think it's 60 odd acres under vines. So slowly kind of replanting it and getting it back. So just putting a rootstock. It's been dry farmed from the beginning, so that's the same. No irrigation. It's
Mm.
been farmed biodynamically since 2008, and that stays the same. And yeah, I'm not changing. Just changing the spacing a little bit, and just getting some good plant material, and trying to just build it strong, so we don't have to replant again in the next 50 100 years maybe.
All right, I like that. That's the Burgundy model, right? Not the
Yeah.
Napa model. Is Pinot your favorite grape?
Yeah, I mean, to drink or to produce.
Either.
I mean, I love Pinot Noir for sure, because there's so little great Pinot Noir out there, even though there's a lot produced. Definitely the most I've worked with. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to grow, and it's needs a lot of attention. And then also in the vinification, you have to pay attention and not mess it up. So yeah, this is a 19 vintage Seven Springs Pinot Noir. So in the scale of things, it was a very normal vintage, on the cooler side for sure compared to 18. 18 was a warm vintage, and we finally picked some grapes end of September. The Seven Springs bottling is from all over the state. We have another bottling called La Source from the higher elevation sections. But this kind of pretty much describes Eola Hills, Seven Springs. It's all fermented with, I guess, again, natural yeast in concrete and wood fermenters. The small amounts of whole cluster in the wine. There's no new oak in the aging process, no fining, no filtration, no additives, just a little sulfur and kind of, it really shows you the kind of Bramley cranberry kind of fruit you get from the Eola Hills, and you get some kind
Do
of.
you think is that a signature of the ALA Mid Hills, that Bramley cranberry fruit that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think in most vintages, it's red fruit.
Mm.
18 you can have some more black fruit character, but Eola Hills, Seven Springs, which is east facing, it has a nice morning sun and kind of, it doesn't have the extreme the evening or the afternoon evening sun, so it has gentler tannins and has very kind of fine tannins, not aggressive tannins. Also, we extract very gently. The time on skins is not very long. It's normal, 12 to 14 days, and yeah, natural acidity, and kind of like to keep it bright and fresh and with a good potential to age.
I mean, I think this has great potential to age, but you're the master in that department. So when would you drink this wine?
It's I would probably, it's so appealing right now. You can pop a bottle right now, or you can age it for 10, 15 years. I think this wine is only going to get better in time as the tannins kind of soften up and you get more fruit. I think once you age a wine like this, it's going to start losing its fruit a little bit, get more herbal and spicy, and then after that, in the 5 to 7 year window, fruit starts coming out again, and you start seeing more fruit and the spice in the background.
So what you're saying is people should be buying 6 to 12 bottles of this and drinking some now and saving for later.
That would be the best case scenario. I mean, it's
I mean, you heard, you got to do what he says. You mentioned some of those older bottlings of like Adelsheim and St. Innocent from the 80s, right? What are
90, yeah.
I've only had a few of them. Scott used to bring in, like, I think we had some Adelsheim and then we had some Rex Hill from the 80s. They were always really interesting, but I'm curious what your take is on older Oregon Pinot Noirs.
Oh, it's amazing. They age really well. They shed all the herbal notes and it's full of fruit, and you get really that. And you also have just that kind of, again, that cranberry with a little bit of that kind of fern green, kind of tiny spearminty, and that's just the character of Silent Spring. There's trees everywhere, and there's a little pond, lake, I guess, a waterfall below the vineyard. It's a beautiful place. It's very green.
Wow.
And you get all, once you go there and you taste the wine, you really get the character in the wine.
It's funny you said fern, and immediately my mind was like, oh yeah, fern. Like I felt like my hand run across a fern, and just like that smell that it leaves on your hand. Initially, this smelled like Thanksgiving dinner. It had all the inner workings of like a turkey and cranberry sauce, but the fern really was like the thing that just was like, ooh, that's that's like for me the tangible thing that I sort of attached to. Man, herbaceous for days, but just so, again, just so complete. What wouldn't you eat this with?
Yeah. Some quail.
That was a question. Quail.
Quail or pheasant and game birds, or roasted chicken.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's not very tannic, so you could also, tuna, albacore, or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of things I would throw with this. I wouldn't mind throwing like a tiny chill on this and bringing this out with Jerusha on a picnic alongside the pet nat, right?
There you go. I like that.
I don't know if she's watching. I think she was helping out at press tonight. But if you're watching, Jerusha, you and I have a date with both of these wines, and then we'll FaceTime Raj and make him jealous.
Sounds good.
Or you can just come up to Napa. Um, Overarching philosophy on Evening Land. What do you see as uh what is the ethos? Who is Evening Land? What is Seven Springs?
Yeah, the Evening Land, it's all Seven Springs. It's the only vineyard we work with. The ethos is, very high level of farming, more than organic, biodynamic, and then take care of the land, dry farm, and then in the cellar, make just fresh and delicious wines, which are, you can drink them young, you can age them, but really wines of the place. If you open a bottle of 2016 or 2019 Seven Spring Chardonnay or Pinot, and you have it consistently, you see it has a reflection of the place, and that's very important to me. It has a reflection of the Willamette Valley, of the Yosemite Hills, and then finally of Seven Springs. Doesn't have an imprint of myself or Sashi or anybody else.
Mm.
It's just the place that remains in the bottle.
And do you think, I mean, coming up as a sommelier, do you think that was sort of always a motivation for you when you would taste wines and you're like, this has the signature of a winemaker and I don't love that?
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think I will not love that because some people have a signature, and I sometimes like wines with a certain person's touch to it. But for me, early on in my career, I always thought of places more than people, and as a sommelier is different in tasting wine, but as a producer, you want to keep that place defined in your bottle. That's very
Mm.
important. I want a Pinot taste like Pinot. I want to, like in 2018, a lot of the Seven Springs Pinot tasted just like, Zinfandel. So we declassified a lot of them to our second label. So that's very important for us, in a difficult 20 vintage, even though we have, a wine we can make plenty, but we want to make it represents when you open a bottle of Evening Land wine from a difficult vintage or a great vintage. It represents us. It represents the vineyard. Represents the vintage. Those things are important.
I think everything is represented in the glass, and more than that, they're delicious. I went back to the Pet Nat just a second ago, and it was just like lit up like a Christmas tree. It was electric in all the best ways possible. I still go back to this like notion of a milkshake because I think it's not a milkshake wine, but it's just so delicious like a milkshake. It's a compliment, I promise. I asked some people on Instagram for some questions and had a couple really good ones come in. I'm not going to use all of them, but I will ask a few. Robert Vernick at Wine Terroir asked, "You're an amazing blind taster. What is the worst call you've ever made that you were like, oh shit, like that was way off?"
Well, I made many, many bad calls, but I guess the top of the list was probably, was in Burgundy. It was late, so but it was a friend of mine gave me a wine blind in Burgundy, and I was, yeah, this is like 85 Gevrey Premier Cru, da da da, and it happened to be like a 1920s Bordeaux. So
Wow.
yeah, so I was the
I feel
wrong.
like that's not that bad though. Like 1920s Bordeaux.
Well, 60
What does
years.
anything taste like at 1920?
I know. I'm still 60 years off. Wrong variety, wrong regions. That's pretty bad.
Well, that's it's not the best call, but it happens. One of the other questions is when is your next book coming out, if ever?
Oh no, no, no more books. I think books now.
Look at you. You're like, I'm so tired right now. I can't even think about it.
No, yeah, I can barely get my day going. There's
I
no
feel
there's
like
no
that for
book,
this.
there's no books in the work.
Fair enough. And then the last question was, what is the name of your new winery going to be called?
Oh, the it's the vineyard. It's just called Field and Farm.
Okay.
That's the name. That's the name of the place. The family has been there, and that's gonna be the label. Yeah.
That's going to be what the wine is called. And you're in, is that in Cambria?
In Cambria, yeah.
Okay.
Phelan Farm, Phelan Farm.
Phelan Farm. Okay. Well, Raj, this has been a pleasure. You and I have only met for a brief 5 seconds, I think, in Tahoe at probably my favorite event ever that I think you ended up leaving early from, which was Australia Decanted.
I know.
Um,
How to pick
but I
grapes.
feel like I know you because of Jerusha. She just always, speaks so highly of you. And,
Yeah,
obviously I've seen you out and about. So a great time to taste with you. I hope that we can do it in person sometime so we can really get down and dirty and some tasting notes and hopefully some food because that's my preferred way of drinking wine is with food. If you know
yes.
that I'm friends with Jerusha, you probably already knew that about me. Um, but beyond that, thank you so much for being here. These were the 3 wines from Evening Land. They're all in the link in the description below. And these are all part of the 2021 spring shipment. So the first wine that we had was the 2020 Evening Land Chardonnay from ALO Amity Hills Wine Club exclusive. I'm sorry, that was not the first one. That was the second one. The Pétillant, the Evening Land Pétillant. And then the last one was going to be the 2000 and what was this, 18, 19, Seven Springs Pinot Noir. All very delicious and available. So thank you, Raj. I will hopefully see you soon. I'm very
Yes.
overdue for a trip down there. So, and up to Oregon for that matter. So thank you for
Yes.
being with
Please.
me. Don't go anywhere, Raj. I gotta click you up, but I will say goodbye to everyone on YouTube right now, and I'll see y'all soon.